good afternoon, everyone. It is great honor, great pleasure to be here. I really would like to thank all the organizers of this magnificent event. I would like to also to thank all the excellencies to make this event possible, and even yesterday night has been a magnificent event. Thank you very much. I thank the panelists that are with me today and every single person today on this fantastic audience. So thank you very much. Before I start asking some questions to the panelists here, I really would like to give a brief introduction on cybersecurity. Because we are in the finance week, I start to give some background information on the financial sectors, which is of course very exposed and very vulnerable when it's down to cyber threats and cyber risk. Now, if we look to statistics, in the last 5 years, the financial sector is always in the top 3 industries by number of attacks received. The reason is that the type of data that we handle in the financial sectors are all very valuable and very sensitive data, because among other things, we handle data which have to do with AML, KYC information, banking data, source of wealth of our customers, and of course, financial assets. Now, most of the cyber attacks are financially driven in 70% of the cases, and this is make the financial sector an obvious target for cyber criminals. The second things I would like to mention, which is, I think, more remarkable, is that if we look to statistics about cyber risk in the broader economies, unfortunately, the data are very worrisome. In fact, just to give you some example, just taking the latest reading, which has to do with 2021 data versus 2020, the 2022, they are not yet available. We can see basically that cyber risk has been increasing dramatically and cyber threats have been increasing dramatically in our economies. Just to give you some figures here, if we take as an example 0 days type of cyber attacks, this is a very sophisticated type of cyber attacks which relies on new detected vulnerabilities detected by cyber criminals, unfortunately. They basically have been increasing by twice just between 2020 and 2021. If we take ransomwares, which is a very popular form of cyber attacks, and very popular also, unfortunately, in the financial sectors, ransomware have been increasing by 5 times between 2016 and 2021. If we look into attacks against corporate networks, the increase has been by 51% between 2020 and 2021. I must say that these data are very bad every single year. I will expect that this same pattern will happen once we are going to receive the 2022 data. The question we have to ask ourselves is why the economies is suffering this tremendous increase in cyber risk and cyber threats. And the answer to that is not that all of the sudden cyber criminals are increasing in numbers. That's not a good answer. I will answer to that by saying that we started the 4th industrial revolution, we started a big digitalization journey, and in fact we started a so-called digital economy. And the digital economy is about companies becoming more digital. It's about companies becoming a bit more of a tech companies. If we think today, we are in fact into the Fintech session of the Finance Week. And what a Fintech company does, of course, a Fintech companies deliver in full their product and services in a fully digitalized manner. So it's 100% of the product and services which become digitalized. This is so-called also digital native, as much as a RegTech is a digital native. Once we look though to more traditional, more established financial players, we can also argue that because of legacy systems, the more traditional financial players are shifting towards more digitalized type of approach to delivering their services. So we can today witness that all the financial sector is moving towards this journey towards an increased digitalization, which, by the way, expose our society and our business towards an increase in cyber risk and cyber threats. The consequence of, I will say, of this journey is not just that there is an increase in cyber risk. That's not what digitalization is about. Digitalization is about that we increase the amount of digital data that we produce as business, and the digital data is the biggest output of today's digital economy. Now, by looking into the digital data, I think the most important things to realize that digital data are very valuable because we can unlock knowledge out of the digital data, we can extract information, we can use this information to increase our efficiency, our productivity. And this is why we started this digital journey. There are a lot of benefits associated. So all of a sudden, the digital data, which are the biggest output of our economies, are also the biggest input of our economy. They are the fuel that is propelling our digital economy. And if I can make a comparison, they characterize our economy, the fourth industrial revolution, as much steam has been characterized in the first industrial revolution, as much electricity has been characterized in the second industrial revolution, as much the hydrocarbons have been characterized in the third industrial revolution. So the data are so valuable today because they are transforming our business in a profound manner. What we need to think about when we deal with data is that they are increasing in exponential rates because of IoT type of technology that we are around deploying, and also because consumer habits, and all because all this is digital transformation. Just to give you an example, we used to store around 2 zettabytes of data just in 2010, and by 2025, our economies will produce 181 zettabytes. This is an increase of 90x, and the main question we should ask ourselves is where we store this data in a scalable manner, in an efficient manner, that then we can use to extract this information that can release more knowledge around our business, our societies. And the answer is that we started a journey towards cloud, because every company is now start to look into cloud to store this data. Government has start to look into cloud to store data. And in the cloud, we also find the computing capabilities that we need to analyze the data. And also we find these amazing algos, which are to do with machine learning and artificial intelligence, which they really are making all this automation and this big digital transformation that, just to give you a number, AI alone is expected to contribute to the global GDP with 16 trillion. This is 16% increase in global GDP. Just to conclude, so the journey of digitalization, from one side, bring an increase in cyber risk, an increase in cyber threats, but we can mitigate this cyber risk through stepping up cybersecurity and change the culture of our boards, of our companies. On the other side, by analyzing this data, by extracting the information, by using AI as an augmented intelligence in our economy, we can really create extra wealth for our economies. And with this economies that is moving towards a more cloud-centric model, I just asked the first question to Christina here, because Google is one of these very powerhouse of cloud and digital transformation used by many governments, companies, millions of customers. And of course, Google has a big responsibility in securing data, and also have a big responsibility about data privacy. And clients need to be reassured that the data that they're moving into Google Cloud, this is not used by Google as well. So my question to Christina is how you secure and protect your customer and how you protect their privacy. Thank you very much, Christina.
Hi, hello, and thanks everybody for having me today. And to answer your question, I think it's important to start. You were saying about how financial entities are getting more and more in danger or attacked during these days. If you think about it, actually Google is probably the more attacked place in the world, but it's also the place that we protect more people in the world. So in terms of numbers, Google keeps more people safe online than like anyone else, I think I can say. We're talking about 1.5 billion users, devices that are protected each day from malware, from social engineer, with the Google Safe Browsing. But as well, we have 2.5 billion of active Gmail users, and we protect them against phishing, malware, spams, so we have all embedded security monitoring. So what happened, what I'm talking about is that we have a scale that actually has a responsibility with it, and that has enabled Google to deliver certain pioneering approaches to the cloud native security. And this we bring to the enterprises everywhere that we can operate, they operate. So we have an incredible scale of data processing, analysis approach, AI, ML, and then we have the focus on eliminating this entire class of threats. So bring in enterprise customers the tools, the insights, and also with partnerships, so we can transform the security of our customers to meet the requirements. Because we know that we are in such a quick and rapid transforming world that we need to be constantly working. We also have this culture, we call it security culture, and that comes internally, that starts with all the employees. So from the hiring process, from the employee onboarding, from the ongoing training, is very, very apparent in the customer or the company-wide culture and events that we need to raise awareness of security and privacy. So we have a dedicated security team and a privacy team. And I can't have to say, like, working with the privacy team is like, you know, passing controls. As you can imagine, you in the financial sector, you know this very well, but we have it in every single sense. We have collaboration with the security research community. We have internal audits, compliance specialists. And what I think is what everybody think about it when they think about Google is data privacy and sovereignty, and how that affects Google Cloud. So, and I think it's important to differentiate between Google and Google Cloud, because Google Cloud includes security controls that you can use to help protect privacy and sovereignty of the business data. So we have access transparency, access approval, sealed VMs, confidential computing. So everything requires that you review, that you approve every single Google access to your customer data. So that's not up to us, it's up to our customers. And we create workflows and design to comply with all the global privacy standards. And you can imagine what will happen if we don't. Like, Google will make the news, I think, first thing in the morning, anytime. And I don't think that we've seen it, or we have seen it. So it seems like we're doing something correctly, and we have to protect the data privacy, and we have that responsibility through all the data lifecycle. We use very strong encryption. So I want to be very clear in terms of like the commitment that Google has to our customers about the data. And I think like we have these rules, and we set it from the very beginning when we start, and we keep it as kind of like our mantra, which is like rule number one: the data belongs to you and to nobody else. We don't sell customer data to third parties. We don't use customer data for advertising. Your data is your data, and Google Advertising and Google Cloud are two different companies. Your data is encrypted, is at rest at all times. You don't have to ask like, oh my God, can you do this? No, it's all the time. And if you want, we can give you ways to actually have an additional encryption with certain industries or certain countries require on top of that. We have very specific rules against insider access. There's no backdoor, there's no secret government access, and we take pride in our international audits, and we deliver results on request. So I think these are the most important rules in our mission of digital transformation. So at the end, we want to help. And as Google and Simone was saying, we do have a big responsibility into helping companies to drive that digital transformation. So without the trust, we couldn't build these great things. And if any company has a kind of like scrutiny regarding trust, Google is like a million times higher in that sense. So I would say, you know, the work of the Google security teams that happen behind closed doors. So, you know, we do intercept government-backed cyber attacks. We take the job of hacking Google actually to strengthen our own defense. And we publish it, all of that. You can actually check it. We do have some type of post and blogs and everything of how do we hack our own data as well. So I think like we're very proud to say that, again, Google keeps more people safe online than anyone else in the world.
Thank you, Cristina. Adrian, I have a question for you as well, very similar. G42 is a leading company on artificial intelligence, also on the use of very innovative technologies. How you can protect your customer data, the security of your clients?
Firstly, thank you, Simone, for having me on the panel. It's a pleasure to be here today. Look, I want to start with a little bit of context. we're seeing this global threat landscape expanding year on year. You gave a statistic around the amount of attacks doubling between the last few years. We're also seeing that on the vulnerability side as well, as publicly disclosed vulnerabilities have been increasing year on year and pretty much doubling over the last 5 years. The attack surface is growing rapidly. Now, when you put it in the context of banking, the banking and financial sector holds an enormous amount of information that's of value to malicious actors. And this is further complicated in the financial services sector when you start to think about banks are multi-line businesses. They run many different applications which require quite a complex set of systems to run these applications in business to support these business processes. And that creates an even greater furball of complexity, so to speak. So in that respect, banks have a very difficult time to manage such a large attack surface. And this is further compounded by activities such as transformation. You mentioned the digitization movements. Many banks want to digitize, therefore are transforming, and often running legacy and contemporary systems in parallel. That means complexity. That means a greater and expanded attack surface. On top of all this, if you think about it from a bank's perspective, they also have this second parallel thread, which is around the regulatory and compliance obligations. So it's a complex world for banking and financial organizations. So one solution is you go it alone and attempt to build up that critical mass or that army of capability, attempt to grow economy of scale and economy of scope as this landscape changes. The other alternative is you partner with those organizations that have the competency and have the scale, the economy of scale, and see across industry and can manage some of these things in a sustainable and economically efficient fashion. So at G42 Cloud, this is where we partner with many banking organizations. And as everyone knows, in cloud, security is absolutely a shared responsibility. And depending on where in that spectrum you're consuming those native cloud services, that balance of responsibility changes. So G42 Cloud, we've developed over 90 in-house cloud-native services. We're trusted with some of the most sensitive data in the country. Our proximity to the regulator allows us to create industry-aligned and industry-compliant solutions and take some of that compliance and regulatory burden off our clients to enable them to focus on their core business objectives rather than scaling out huge teams to deal with some of the security obligations. On top of that, G42 Cloud, we are a sovereign cloud, right? And our mission is to continue to expand the benefits of sovereignty across certainly the UAE and Middle Eastern regions. We have external assurance around ISO 27001, Cloud Security Alliance with the STAR program, as well as for more relevant to the banking and financial services industry, PCI DSS. So we'll continue to help some of our clients take on those regulatory and compliance burdens that a lot of this attack surface opens our customers up to.
Thank you very much. I ask a question to Professor Barbara. I know, Professor, that you are publishing, you have a publication on corporate governance. You sit, or you have, in your career, you have been seated in 40 supervisory boards. How much cyber threats and cyber security are affecting the corporate governance and eventually what is happening at corporate boards type of level? Thank you.
Thank you, Simone. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon.
You need to use the mic, Giovanni.
Scusami?
We cannot hear you well. You need to use the mic.
Sul microfono, va bene?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I have prepared some slides and a report that, of course, you can have, but due to the fact that you have 5 minutes, and try to summarize the most important concept in terms of corporate governance. As everybody knows, corporate governance is very important, not only to manage the company in a virtuous way, but also to manage the company in compliance with regulation and the law, of course. Specifically, board and directors should monitoring any kind of risk, and especially, of course, cyber risk, given to the potential damage. I'm talking about financial, reputational, legal, that the attack can cause to the entire organization. So, consequently, we certainly can say that it is necessary that cybersecurity becomes an integral part of the culture of the company. No way. And to do so, company cybersecurity compliance must begin well before any cyber incident. This means that the board and directors need to understand and approach cybersecurity as an enterprise-wide risk management issue, not just a technology issue. The sector regulation is not yet provide for specific obligations and liabilities for the company's directors. However, if they do not implement appropriate security action or comply with the obligation imposed by the provisions, they may be liable for the breach of the general duty of care. So, let me say what, in my opinion, board and directors have to do. We have a list, a short list. Directors should understand the legal implication of cyber risks. Boards should have adequate access to cybersecurity expertise, and the discussion about cyber risk management should be given a regular and adequate time on board meeting agendas. Directors should set the expectation that the management will establish an enterprise-wide cyber risk management framework with adequate staffing and budget. Board management discussion about cyber risk should include identification of risks to avoid, with to accept, and which to mitigate or transfer through insurance, as well as a specific plan associated with each approach. So, at the end, it is important not to forget information flows. Information flows from the Security Operation Department. Without information flows, nobody can evaluate and discuss anything to take informed action.
Okay, thank you, Professor Barbara. We might have a very last 1 minute. I ask Christina, what is, in your opinion, the biggest trend right now in cybersecurity? You need to be very brief, Christina. We have 60 seconds, sorry. I know it's a big question, but please.
Sorry, I was just trying to unmute, so what took me a little bit. So, I mean, I think like the biggest trend in cybersecurity, I do it quite fast. Well, I think we are still at the breaking point in which traditional security solutions cannot longer scale. but we have a lot of complexity with all the modern technologies environment. So this comes with alert fatigue, pricing cost, supply chain, security concerns, and mainly talent shortage, which is a big problem, I think, for all of us. And balancing the act of security we need against all that developer velocity and the business innovation is how we need to combat this. And I see organizations that are looking to invest in all these security capabilities. So they want to provide what we call invisible security guardrails. So that doesn't destroy the developer freedom, which is something we see all the time. So is that desire of the customers to invest in different solutions that can help, like examples would be this zero trust, for example. That would be probably my main point. And I stop it here, so we have time for the rest.
Thank you very much. Thank you all the speakers. Thank you all the audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon.